Let's do it. We're back in our of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast. Let's get back into where it cut off last time. Regardless of what's in here about RFK, the obviously more important news is that the New York Times wants you to oppose him, and since they're among the worst of your enemies, perhaps you should listen to what he has said for himself. And that was from Scott Horton on Twitter, and I posted that, and I said, you can always count on the MSM trying to sell you an agenda first and foremost. I do think RFK Jr. is a bit of a grifter, but I can definitely agree that the MSM being against him does make him a lot more appealing to me. Then we have the Biden regime spared no expense to hunt down every human being within a mile of the Capitol on J6, but within 24 hours of someone leaving an 8-bowl of freshly uncut Nicaraguan outside of White House Situation Room, they were all like, well, you got us there, from the red-headed Libertarian on Twitter, and I posted that, and I said, no one is above the law, except when the narrative says otherwise. So that's my thoughts there, it's especially since it was probably Hunter that did it, because, I don't think most normal people are just going to sneak into the White House and do cocaine in there. So I definitely think, it's so the thing is that the narrative matters. If this was Trump's administration, they'd obviously say, oh, someone he did it or someone in his family did it, arrest immediately. But no, since it's Biden's, they don't care that someone's doing cocaine in the White House. I don't think cocaine should be illegal, but there's obviously a two-tier justice system here. Educate the children. It won't be necessary to punish the men. Pythagoras from Nathan RH, and that's an image of the Pythagoras quote saying, educate children, won't be necessary to punish the man. I would agree there. The thing is, the thing is, what is education? Education, is kind of it's objective a lot of the time. Like, education these days is much more indoctrination, pushing your beliefs on someone rather than telling people to think for themselves. And I think that's important to remember. And I like this Inquantra comment. Sometimes I'm sure, though, that anyone who tries for about 3 seconds find plenty of well-educated criminals out there. I would agree. A lot of criminals, I would say, are well-educated, especially the higher-profile ones. And that's why I think, education isn't all it's cracked up to be. I think education is good, but, I think we really need to hold up a system of morality. Not too much like the traditional Christian system, I would say, but more so a system of just don't violate the NAP, don't hurt anyone else. You can do whatever you want, but so education is good, but it's not the end-all be-all, I would say. Outside of January 6th, how was Trump's tenure as U.S. president that different from Obama's or Biden's? And I posted that. And I said, I keep getting told that they are drastically different for some reason, and I released to buy into that, but looking back, his presidency was pretty par for the course in my opinion. Kids were in cages under all 3 of them. People in the media really only seem to care about it under Trump. Same with having a cozy relationship with strongman dictators. A lot of people forgot Obama did stuff like that too, and then I linked to the U.S. African Leaders Summit for 2014, where Obama invited a bunch of African strongman leaders into the White House to empower for like 30 plus years or so, and that's something important to remember. They don't really, no one ever called Obama out on that really, but everyone called Trump out on his relationships with the dictators. So that's important to remember. And yeah, I personally believe the hype when it was going on about Trump being the worst thing ever. And I still don't really care for the guy, but the sad thing is, it's just we're you'll get through the term regardless. I would say if he gets, he made it for his first term. He'll probably make it for another of his terms, sadly, and he's just gonna be par for the course. He's not gonna. I would say he's virtually the establishment at this point. He ran on being anti-establishment, but he's the establishment. It's just like Obama. Obama said we're gonna bring some change to Washington. Trump said we're gonna shake things up, but neither they're just saying that it's just telling you a narrative. There's never gonna be change in politics, I would say, and we're all and the system just won't break until it's probably after our lives. I would say, which that's the sad truth. The U.S. is just too stable to collapse. But the crooked politician class will always remain until the collapse, I'll say. Then we have leaks reveal FBI helps Ukraine censor Twitter users and obtain their info from the gray zone. And I posted that and I said, definitely not surprising, sadly. The thing is that the Ukrainians, I would say, is definitely colluding with the U.S. The U.S. government is definitely colluding with Ukraine, and you're definitely seeing that how Ukraine is pretty much it's a grift. I support the rights to defend themselves, but it's the U.S. orchestrated kind of astroturfed the coup in the first place in 2014, and then to put in the more Western favoring government, and then they're the ones supplying increasingly deadlier and deadlier weapons. So you got to question who's really running the show here. Is it Ukraine? Maybe, but I definitely think it's really the FBI, CIA, and then the other alphabet agencies as it usually is. In March 2023, Stanford University booed a conservative speaker off campus because his views were too dangerous. In June 2023, Stanford welcomed the neo-Nazi Azov Battalion to campus with open arms to thank them for their good work in Ukraine. That was from Nico House on Twitter. I guess all that one Glenn Greenwald tweeted it. And I said, really, just good. It goes to show that the narrative is much more important than people's actual values. The TVs, the people, all people on the left to say, oh, I hate Nazis, but then the TV will say Ukraine good, and since the Azov Battalion are Ukrainian, their Ukrainian status takes precedence over their Nazi status. So that's why it's just whatever the TV says. That's what people will do. Whatever the media tells them to do, and think whatever the media tells them to think. It's like a lot like 1984. It's whatever they want you to think. You'll think, or you'll be ostracized and bullied and such. That's why you gotta question this stuff. You can't just say. No, I don't really care. No, you gotta question all this stuff. Like, why are people just believing everything they're told? It's just people. A lot of people don't have critical thinking like that. President Biden is now bypassing U.S. law to ensure more innocent people are blown apart by U.S. weapons, from Justin Amash on Twitter. And I said, it's crazy that you can't question this at all without being labeled as a Russian asset. The thing is that even that a lot of left-leaning libertarians like Amash, well, he's more in the center. I'd say Josh Equal and Chase Oliver, they're all questioning it. But the thing is that this subreddit, it's a lot of Ukrainian kind of NPCs on there. So I know the U.S. should give Ukraine whatever it wants. Like I'm pretty sure if Ukraine asked for nuclear weapons, this subreddit, a lot of people on the left, like this subreddit, would say, oh, the U.S. should give Ukraine nuclear weapons, and they just don't realize how stupid a bad idea that is. I like Ryan Graham's point I found on Twitter. I keep seeing the revolt that Russia is already using them. What about them at its finest? Most disagree that Russia is a bad actor. Dropping their level only solidifies the tactic as acceptable. If you become your enemy to defeat them, you've already lost. That's the thing, is that Ukraine is, the U.S. will give Ukraine whatever it wants. Soon it's going to be nuclear weapons, probably. And people will just be saying, oh, that's actually good. The U.S. should give Ukraine whatever it wants. Because it's not, heck, I'm pretty sure people will say, oh, the U.S. should just drop nuclear bombs on Moscow and kill tons of civilians because the TV tells them to. And that's important to remember as to why, it's just the media. It's Vietnam all over again, just constant escalation. But you can't question it because they've found a way to control social media, just like the same way as they had controlled traditional media back during the days of the Vietnam War. Maybe one day people will wise up, but if this time it's not gonna be this time, I don't think it will ever really happen. Then we have removed by Room My Circle Jerk. I guess they're just making fun about how many posts they get removed. Why illegal immigration is nearly impossible from the Cato Institute by Rumor My Circle Jerk. And yeah, I think that's important to remember. I think we should make immigration as easy as possible, but I can see a libertarian argument going the other way with the current welfare state system. Virginia Court of Appeals has says probable cause alone isn't enough for warrantless search from OC12.com from Ninja Lover. I'd say that's good news. I'd agree with that. Seeing way too many positive posts about RFK Jr. recently, let's consider his impact on public health as a person about any position of authority, and that's an MSNBC video from Paton Furtan. And I said, an MSNBC video that had an ad prior to it when Obama telling me to donate to Act Blue and a vaccination information on exploring below it. RFK Jr. is definitely a grifter, but something tells me he isn't dealing with an agenda here. You know, I don't really care for RFK Jr. and the whole anti-vax grifters, I would say. But that doesn't mean big pharma and the MSM are your friends either. You know, everyone's got an agenda to sell you, and that's important to remember. AOC, who ran her 2018 primary campaign based on a vow to wage war against the Democratic Party DC establishment, announces her support for Joe Biden's re-election in the Democratic Party primary on the day he announced cluster bombs for Ukraine from Glenn Greenwald on Twitter. And I said, sad, you either die fighting the establishment or live to see yourself become it. And, you know, that's the thing is, you know, that's just, you know, that's the faux progressive champagne socialist who would just who will say, oh, I think we need to make I think we need to support real reform, but then we'll vote blue no matter who, you know. And that's the thing is the Democrats could nominate a half full can of Dr. Pepper and they'd still vote for it. And that's just a sad truth of the political system we live in. This sub is more censorship happy than r/libertarian from West Circle Jerk. I disagree with that statement personally, but whatever you want. The regime media smear campaign targeting #Sound of Freedom, the indie film hit about stopping child sex trafficking based on a true story, is probably the starkest example yet of how they're the enemies of the people, especially when compared to how they lionize cuties from the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus on Twitter. And I posted that and I said, don't forget how they try to ignore bringing up Epstein whenever possible. You know, it just goes to show you. They say, oh, there's like Jack Pasibich on Twitter tweeted, let's see, The Guardian ran a huge expose on child sex trafficking in Colombia in 2018. Now they're saying it's a conspiracy theory to watch a movie about child sex trafficking in Colombia. You know, that's the thing. The media says Cuties is good, and this movie's bad because you know, they have an agenda to market, and anything that questions it is verboten according to the media. Of course, Ninja Lover comment, to be clear, Sound of Freedom is a QAnon film about cabal people who harvest children for their adrenal gland. It's Pizzagate movie form. The fact that the MCs are more of QAnon nonsense isn't surprising in the least. I replied, Cuties is fine though. I'm on Reddit alright. It's like the MSNBC is a social network. You know, the thing is that Ninja, they just believe a lot of people on the server believe whatever MSNBC tells them. You know, they'll just go along with whatever MSNBC's narrative is. And the MSNBC narrative is Sound of Freedom bad, associated with conservative, white, male, conservative Christian, made by a conservative, white, male, conservative Christian studio. Cuties good. Black, French, liberal woman. Yeah, so it's just people will go along with whatever the narrative says, and that's pretty much what's the biggest lesson that social media has taught me. He worked for years to overturn affirmative action and finally won. He's not done from Ninja Lover, and I get from the New York Times, and I guess that's good. You know, I think, you know, I think, you know, if I personally think a lot of this affirmative action stuff is kind of racism. He just says, "Oh, this guy might try and take it to the workplace." And I think that might be a good decision. I don't know, but I do think if companies do want to discriminate for a hiring process based on anything, they should be able to. And so that's why I personally would be against it. But I definitely think, you have the whole it's racism argument as well. What does the Bible have to do with U.S. history? From Donald Key, and that's a tweet from Ben Baker. Ross Bush was from the White People Twitter subreddit, and Ben Baker tweeted, the governor signed SB 34. This legislation I filed that specifies that the Bible can be taught as an elective from our historical perspective in our public schools. This will provide the opportunity for our kids to have a better understanding of U.S. history. Hashtag Moleg. And I personally think, the founders were definitely inspired a lot by Christianity in the Bible. And I think that's important to remember. And I personally would support this, but, I guess you can make another argument as well that the Bible is really not as relevant to the history of the United States as you would say, as a lot of people say otherwise. So I think, everyone should take their own interpretation of it. Then we have Sacramento Sheriff is sharing license plate reader data with anti-abortion states. Records show from SacB.com by Willing Dan. And that's the thing with the government. They're naturally just going to share whatever they want to share with anyone who they want to share it with. And sadly, there's nothing you can really do about it. Apparently, the U.S. has finally finished destroying all our chemical weapons from Incrementi. That's a self-post from CBS News. U.S. destroys latest chemical weapons. Sure, a few people may have been missed. And absolutely Biden may have been lied about it. For sure, we know how to make them and could do so again, drop of the hat. But at least we finally did it. We lived up to the agreement, and anyone who wants a peaceful world should applaud the move. Don't worry, mad, obsessed types. We still have plenty of ways to go strange and horrible ways. I totally trust the U.S. government to not lie about stuff like this. Sarcasm, if you couldn't tell. The U.S. government, they probably still have chemical weapons under the table. They funded biowarfare. Like with the coronavirus, that was probably Fauci funded that, and. So I think they probably have chemical weapons under the table. They're probably still funding chemical weapons and biological warfare as we speak. So I don't think it really matters. I don't trust the U.S. government in the slightest when it comes to stuff like that. Then finally, if you're defending President Biden disowning his grandchild, you've been sucked in blind by tribalism and partisanship from Black Plumbo on Twitter, and I posted that. And I said, that sadly seems to be par for the course these days, tribalism and partisanship. It's Hunter's religion, in case you know. He doesn't recognize her even though she's in Arkansas, and he doesn't recognize her because she's illegitimate, even though he lets Hunter do whatever he wants in the White House, even if he wants to snort some blow, so he can do that in the White House. So this goes to show you what kind of values Biden has. He wants to support his family, but as long as it's politically estimate for him to do so. And yeah, so I think we're gonna wrap it up there, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.